In the first 3 months of 2018, 696 farmers committed suicide due to droughts, debt, and poverty in the state of Maharashtra. Those most impacted by such tragic measures are the vulnerable left behind, the children. One person's initiative to help these children coming up on Unraveling India. In the 190 years leading up to Britain's departure from India in 1947, the per capita income of average Indians had not grown, while the literacy rate was just 18%. Since independence, modern education and jobs have still not reached most Indians. Almost bankrupt, India was in 1990 forced to open its borders and economy. As a result, the country became prospering as millions entered the global workforce. One of them was Ashok Deshmane. But rather than enrich himself alone, he decided to leave his high-paying job to start a non-profit aimed at educating the children of poor farmers. We talked to Ashok to learn more about his inspiration, his work, and his vision of the future.
Mr. Ashok Deshmane, welcome to Unraveling India.
Thank you.
Hello, sir.
You were born in a poor farmer's family, so you have faced a lot of challenges growing up. What were your experiences while growing up, and how were those different or similar from that of the boys you take care at Snehawan?
I was born into a family of poor farmers. When I was little, I used to accompany my parents on the farm and help them with farming tasks. Our land was in a drought-affected area, so we had to struggle to get water for the farm. We were poor and our village so small that there were not many avenues for me to get a good education. My parents sacrificed a lot to educate me. I got an education because of their strong will. I got a good education and a job, but then I left that job in order to help other poor farmers' children. Whatever I could not get during my own childhood, I tried to give to those children. For example, I wanted to read a book named Wings of Fire by the late President Abdul Kalam, but I did not have the money to buy it. There was only one copy of that book in the library, and it was out on reserve for months. I didn't even see a computer until I was in the 10th grade. So I tried to give those children all the important things, especially modern equipment, that I couldn't afford in my own childhood because I felt that they had a right to the best things in the world.
Why were you interested in reading Wings of Fire? And what did you learn from it?
When I was in the 12th grade, I supported myself by working on a transport truck. I used to sleep in that truck. The other truckers ate meat, but since I was a vegetarian, I would only eat rice because that's all there was besides the meat. The book is about the struggles of Dr. Kalam. He was my idol. I wanted to know how he became successful from such a humble background. For example, in his book, he says that if you hate people, then you will never have time to love. And because of that book, I learned to embrace my struggle, my circumstances, and to love the people around me.
I also remember spending time with my grandfather. Most of his friends were of Mahanubhav and Varkari sects, which do not believe in the caste system. I used to listen to them talking, so that from childhood, I believed that everyone is capable of achieving great things if you give them opportunity, education, and the right tools to succeed. But in India, not everyone gets equal opportunities. For example, Indian government schools and even private schools don't teach computer or music. Here in Arlington, Massachusetts, in public schools, they teach computers, music, drama, etc. So what kind of education and tools do the kids you work with get in school, and how you compensate at Snehawan for what they do not get in school?
You are correct. The Indian education system is based on bookish knowledge. There's not much practical knowledge or emphasis on building soft skills. The education I had was good enough for me to get a modest paying job where I could earn enough to buy essential goods, but it failed to develop me into a more well-rounded person. When I took these kids into my home to help them with their education and upbringing, I wanted to imbue them with more practical knowledge These children go to the nearby Marathi medium school, where they learn with other kids from the neighborhood. So when they are not in school, I encourage them to pursue their interests. I teach them arts and crafts. I teach them classical Indian music, how to play the Indian hand drum and the Indian piano, etc., the harmonium. I teach them how to use computers. I also teach them self-defense through karate and taekwondo. So, in essence, I enhance their school education with creative arts, martial arts, and useful technical skills. I really feel it is important to help kids develop good reading habits starting in early childhood so they can have a better chance at broadening their horizons. So, I've built a library with more than 1,000 books, but in order to not discount the importance of entertainment, we started a fun tradition called One Book, One Movie, where these kids read one book every week and watch one movie every weekend. I told you how difficult it was for me to get the book I wanted to read when I was a kid. But now, our 5th grade students have read it, and our 8th grade students read Magnus Opus, like Marutanjai, about the life of Karna from Mahabharata. These kinds of books broaden and strengthen their thinking, and this kind of knowledge helps them in tough times just as it helped me.
Let's go back a little bit. Before starting Snehawan, you were working at an IT company. You left that job to start the organization. What motivated you to leave your well-paying job that your parents worked so hard to provide you the education for? And why did you decide to take these kids into your home and take care of their upbringing?
बरोबर आहे. ॲक्च्युली हे जे होतं हे असं एक
I did not make this decision in one day. It was my desire to provide the best education and upbringing to others that I could not get for myself, because I grew up in a poor farming family. When I was in college, I came to know about the work Baba Amte started through the Anandwan organization. Anandwan works to provide medical care for leprosy patients and education for tribal people. I attended their Swararandan program in Parabani district. By the end of that program, I started reevaluating my life. At that point, I had everything. The leprosy patients didn't even have fingers, hands, or eyes, yet they were living their lives to the fullest. While I had everything, I was still complaining about my life, so I decided to stop complaining. I decided to smile and keep smiling and to make others smile and laugh. I decided to make connections with good people, to surround myself with people who make me happy and make them happy in return. I was in college at the time, so I did not have the money to help others, but I could give my time. Then I got a job. I decided to give away a certain amount from my salary to help others. I wanted to help an Ashok like me who didn't have the money to get a good education. While continuing to work at my job, on the side I taught kids from poor tribal families. But as they did not have permanent homes, they were often forced to move to another place, and that experience pained me greatly. I felt bad that those kids would not be able to continue their education. In the meanwhile, I also got busy in other aspects of my life. I changed my job and my parents started to look for a suitable bride for me. During this time, in 2014 and 2015, there is a severe drought in my home district of Parabani, a drought not seen in decades. I saw the devastation it caused when visiting my hometown for the 2015 Diwali festival. I witnessed how people had to travel up to 6 miles to get water. I even saw the struggle my parents went through to get water. It was sad to see this situation in India nearly 70 years after its independence. I started thinking about the reasons behind it and who's responsible for this situation and what can be done about it. I told myself that instead of pointing the blame and instead of just complaining about it, I should take action. But what action could I take? As I was leaving to go back to my job in Pune, I saw how some people from my hometown were leaving for cities, and I asked them what they would do with their children's education. And what they told me was that they did not have the money to even eat, and that they weren't able to even find a small job, so the education of their children was the last thing on their minds. And I understood their plight. I decided to do something about their education. Upon returning to Pune, I thought about it a lot. I happened to meet Prakash Amte, the younger son of Baba Amte. I told him about my plan to start a non-profit, and he encouraged me to do it. He told me that while there would be challenges and hard work, nothing is impossible. I decided to leave my job and take on the responsibility of educating these kids by starting an organization that I named Snehawan. I would like to tell you that Snehawan means friendly rural community. I did not have the money to start it, so my friend Anil Kote gave me his 4-room house to help me get the organization off the ground. And in the beginning, my parents were not supportive. They said that after so much struggle and we are finally seeing good days and you finally have a good paying job, that you will need to keep that in order to get yourself a good wife, and leaving this all behind would not be good for my future. I told them that they had to struggle so much to educate me, and there are many Ashoks that need help, so I feel I need to stand for them. After they were finally convinced, they left everything back home and joined me here, and I registered Snehawan in December 2015 and started my new life.
Oh, I also visited Anandvan in 2007. I met Kaustubh Amte and I visited Hemal Kasa, where Prakash Amte started a clinic and a school for tribals. It was a great experience for me. I'm glad that you are getting support and guidance from those people. If you look at the history of development of Western civilization, they developed because they moved on from farming to manufacturing to advanced manufacturing and into the service sector. But now in India, there is only farming left in Indian villages. But before British arrived in India, there was healthy manufacturing and trading activities in Indian villages. Indian goods were being exported all over the world, including in Europe. Recently, I read The Case for India by American historian Will Durant, which has been translated into Marathi as well. I will send you a copy of it for children to read. In his book, he explains how in order to destroy competition to British goods and find cheaper raw material, British Parliament passed laws to destroy Indian manufacturing by imposing duties. So due to the destruction of its manufacturing sector, Indians had to go back to farming. Still today, there is no employment opportunities in Indian villages except farming and farming dependent businesses. Even after 1947, that is independence of India, despite Mahatma Gandhi's message of decentralization, Nehru concentrated power in the hands of few and did not do much to encourage non-agricultural activities in rural India. Some of the Indian elites in Pune, Mumbai and Delhi do not consider villagers and farmers to be intellectual. When village boys go to cities, they are seen as inferior. When I went to city of Pune, I was seen as inferior. People would openly make fun of my clothes, my language. Despite of your efforts to educate these village kids so they can do something other than farming that will allow them a better standard of living, urban Indian elites continue to see rural Indians as inferior, needing only bare minimum to subsist. Why is that discrimination?
आता यामध्ये आपण जसं म्हणतो की मला तर असं खरं वाटतं की
I agree with that. People from villages are seen differently because there are essentially two Indias within India. One is made up of rich people from cities, and the other is made up of poor people from villages. The powerful in cities access water right in their homes, while people in villages have to travel miles to get to it. If you look at the process of India's development, it is not homogeneous across the entire nation. As you said, despite Gandhi's policies, villages were left without any investments because there were no incentives for politicians to develop these villages. They do not get any revenues from the villages, where there are no taxes on agriculture in India, and there are no other economic sectors in villages. When a city develops, the government can earn taxes. So that is one of the reasons behind the neglect of villages and farmers. I think farmers are partly to blame for it. They don't know their rights as citizens because they have never been educated or they haven't educated themselves about their rights. If they don't even know that they're being treated unfairly, then they won't rise against it. There needs to be an initiative to educate farmers and villagers about their rights and to offer quality educational opportunities to their children in a way that expands their worldview. I would like to do some similar work to that done by Karmavir Barar Patel, where only rich had access to good education. He brought education to the masses by building hundreds of schools. And I believe that through education, people can learn life skills needed for rising above adverse situation. And that's the reason I started Snehawan.
So I would like to ask, how many students do you have and which part of the state of Maharashtra do these kids come from and how do you select them?
हो नक्कीच. आता यामध्ये आमच्याकडे निवासी
So I have 25 resident children, and all of them are boys. All of them are from Marathwada and Vidarbha regions within Maharashtra. More specifically, the Paravani, Jalna, Bid, and Vashim districts within those regions. I thought a lot about how to go about selecting these children, and in order to get government aid, you have to follow certain criteria and select certain children. I was in a quandary about whether to follow government rules for selecting children in order to get the aid, or whether to forego the aid so that I could select them based on my own criteria for creating the best impact on society. And I chose the latter. I knew that to start any movement, one needs to think outside of the box. I knew that alone I couldn't make that difference. So I wanted to create a mechanism that would enable me with others to do great work in the field of education. I wanted to create a movement to connect with like-minded people and make a difference over the next 10 to 15 years. When I started selecting students, I could have easily gotten 100 children just from my native village alone, but I selected them from various villages around the entire state of Maharashtra because I wanted to create socially conscious young people everywhere, not just limited to my hometown. Specifically, I selected students from 4 villages of the Parabani district, 4 villages of the B district, and 4 villages of the Jalna and Vashim districts. I don't know yet if I will still apply to get aid from the government, but in the meanwhile, I felt that it was important to move forward on my own to focus on the positive change I want to bring. We do surveys every year in the month of May, and we survey these impoverished districts to know who is in need of education, who is not getting education because of their family conditions, or who is not able to continue his or her education. We look for the children who satisfy these criteria. Many of my friends helped me in this noble cause. As I mentioned, for 8 or 9 months after starting Snehawan, I worked at night before I decided to do this full time. During that period, I used to go to the villages every weekend to select kids. For example, I would look for a farmer who had migrated to another village or to a city because he could not support his family, with the result that these kids were forced to leave school only after the 3rd or 4th grade. I got many of the children like these back to school, and this is how we selected children and started our organization.
What were your experiences convincing the parents to send their kids with you? How did you convince these parents to separate from their children?
सुरुवातची होती म्हणजे आता माझ्या
When I was the age of these kids, there wasn't much awareness about education. Farmers used to think that an 8th or even 10th grade level education for their children was more than enough. But now, villagers better understand that the lack of education and ignorance keeps them in poverty. They now are understanding that they were taken advantage of because their forefathers were uneducated, so they are motivated to educate their children. Every family is struggling to get good education for their kids, but it is very expensive. So it remains difficult for poor kids to get a good education. Poor kids get education in Marathi middle schools up to the 10th grade, but after that, all technical education is only available in English. and the fees for such courses are so high that poor families can't pay for it, ultimately discontinuing their education despite having such big dreams. Knowing this, families are willing to send their kids with me, hoping that they can finally get a decent education. Of course, some families are reluctant to send their kids away. Many wanted to come and see our residence to make sure things are in order, to make sure that their child will get all their basic needs met, to make sure that we don't have any ulterior motives in having these kids with us, etc. Parents were suspicious because they know people don't even help each other with 10 to 15 cents, and here I was offering them to take the full responsibility of their boy. I assured them that their boy would always be their boy. I asked them to trust me to let me take care of their boy's education, to let me make sure that the boy becomes a good and responsible citizen. After much convincing, some said yes. There was certainly a struggle in the beginning, with many mothers or fathers saying no for the first 2 or 3 months, but I was patient. I explained to them that their generation suffered because of a lack of education. Unless they get a good quality education, they will not be able to break the poverty trap. I asked them to give me an opportunity to help them, and because of this, so many took the chance.
That's a lot of patience and convincing. When you started in 2015, you said many people came forward to help you. What ways did they help you?
सुरुवात जी होती ती मी असा संकल्प केला होता की कोणी
So
मदत
I
करू
was
का नको
determined to help
माझ्या
these kids, and before asking others, I wanted to show them that I was committed. So I started building this organization with my own salary and savings. As I mentioned before, after seeing my commitment, my friend Anil Kute gave me his 4-bedroom house. Another friend, Sakari Nan, along with the help of a friend of his, built a website for us, and he also raised money from his colleagues. And this is really how we started.
I see many influential people from media, art, government visit Snehawan. Recently, a delegation from Israel attended a program with Snehawan. So, what was the occasion and how did they come to know about you?
माझे एक मित्र आहेत बडोद्याचे निकितीन कॉन्ट्रॅक्टर म्हणून त्यांनी आता रिसेंटली एक छोटासा कार्यक्रम बडोद्यामध्ये ठेवला
So I have a friend from Bardoda, Nikitin Contractor. He had invited all of us, including the children, to visit Bardoda city in Gujarat. He had organized one program for us there. So he had also invited the Israeli delegation. I want to start a farming school. Israel has made great progress in the field of farming, and help from Israel would be so useful for other purposes.
So, tell me more about this Baroda trip. It sounds interesting. So, what was the occasion for the trip, and what did children learn there?
त्यामध्ये जे आमचे मित्र
So our
आहेत,
friends Nikitin Contractor and Kavita Murudkar wanted to help us with our work. So they invited all kids at Bardoda City for a fun and education trip so children can see a different world. We visited a planetarium in Bardoda. We visited a public park. We visited a food processing plant of Legit. They firsthand saw the role of technology in the food industry and other industries. We familiarized them with the great history of India. We took them to Sayadyaro Gaikwad Palace. He was one of the progressive kings of India, and because of his generous scholarship, the Dalit leaders like Ambedkar could earn his PhD in finance from Columbia University. The children were delighted by this entire experience. Nikitin Contractor took all the children to the Grand Merchant, a 5-star hotel. We celebrated Children's Day. All hotel staff came down to celebrate the day with the children. He also organized a cake festival for the children. They all experienced those nice things for really the first time in their life, and they had a blast. They could see themselves enjoying those privileges in the future. They could really see that if they study hard, if they don't lose focus and determination, then these things are within their reach. And this was the entire purpose of the trip, and I do think we achieved that.
Now, I would like to know a little bit about where do you get financial help to continue your operations?
आणि त्या
Many friends from various parts helped us. we have just started, so not many people actually know about it. The young Indians are especially taking the lead to help us. Many students from colleges and high school help me with educating these children.
Currently, there are 25 children, all boys, at Snehawan, but you want to take in girls and educate them also. So, how important it is for you to make girls part of Snehawan and educate them? And what are your plans going forward?
सर मला तर असं वाटतं की खरं तर पहिलं काम
I
मुलींसाठी
always felt that I should have started with girls because empowerment of women is the most important thing. Whether it is for running the home or a company or a country. For a farmer's family, the role of the woman is very important. An educated woman can develop a strong generation of men and women. But due to the lack of money and space, I could not do that, and I felt really bad for the inability to do so. In the future, to strengthen girls, I want to start a school for them.
In India, average farm size is just 3 acres compared to 400 acres in the US. So it is almost impossible for an Indian farmer to compete globally. Millions in India are starving because they can't support their families on the income they earn. For example, a recent study showed that 50% of Indian women suffer from malnutrition. So there is an urgent need to empower and uplift 50% of Indian population, that is 600 million, almost twice size of that of US, that are dependent on agriculture. So what do you think needs to be done so they will get education and make a career move out of agriculture?
तर त्यामध्ये सर आपल्याला
There is a need for a joint effort because a single person can't bring a meaningful change. Everyone needs to work together. Today, Snehawan has 25 children, and after 5 or 10 years, they will go out in this world and they will start working for their villages. Hopefully, by then, I would have embedded in them values of universal brotherhood and social responsibility. So these children will go out and start initiatives like Snehawan.
So where can audience find more information about Snehawan?
त्यांना सर
They
आमच्या
can find more
Facebook
information on Facebook. They can also find more information on www.snehawan.in. They can also connect with me on WhatsApp at 91-879-64-00484.
So we are coming to an end of the program. So is there anything more you would like to share with the audience today?
नक्कीच मला असं सांगावं वाटतं
I just want to end by saying that I feel every educated person in this world should take the responsibility to educate an uneducated person. If we do that, the entire world will become so beautiful. And the individual might not have the resources to make the world happy, but if we all make one person happy, then the entire world will be happy. And if you can't give time, then help financially. I would also like to say to the Americans that if you have any friends or family in India, please ask them to visit Snehawan in Pune and spend some time with these kids. And if you happen to come to India, please make sure to come visit and guide us.
Thank you so much, Ashok, for joining me today on Unraveling India. It was a real pleasure talking to you and knowing about the work you have been doing. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors at Snehawan and wish you good luck. Thank you so much.
धन्यवाद सर थँक्यू
Thank you so much for joining me. This is your host, Deepak Goodbye. Goodbye for now.